The text that destroyed James Parker's life was sent at exactly 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, a flirty message meant for his dinner date that accidentally went to Victoria Reynolds, CEO of the pharmaceutical company that held his daughter's life in their hands. His stomach dropped as he stared at his phone in horror, realizing his catastrophic mistake. Looking forward to tonight. Can't stop thinking about your smile and wondering what it would be like to kiss you. James had 5 minutes of panic before his doorbell rang, 5 minutes to contemplate how he just torpedoed his last chance to get his 8-year-old daughter Lily into the experimental treatment program that could save her life. Victoria Reynolds, known throughout the business world as the Ice Queen, had personally driven to his modest suburban home after receiving his message. As he approached the door with trembling hands, James knew this wasn't just embarrassing, it was potentially devastating. Without Reynolds Pharmaceuticals' treatment program, Lily's rare immune disorder would continue to progress, and the single father would lose the only person left in his world who mattered. When he opened the door, Victoria Reynolds stood on his porch looking nothing like her polished magazine covers. Her normally perfect blonde hair was slightly windblown, and her piercing blue eyes were wide with an emotion James couldn't identify. She mortgage, but something about her seemed almost human. "Mr. Parker," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "I believe we need to discuss the message you sent me." James felt his face burn with shame. "Ms. Reynolds, I am so incredibly sorry. That text was never meant." She held up one perfectly manicured hand. "May I come in? I think we have more to discuss than just an errant text message." Confused and terrified, James stepped aside to let her enter his home. Toys were scattered across the living room floor, and dishes from breakfast still sat in the sink. He'd been so focused on preparing for tomorrow's meeting with Reynolds Pharmaceuticals, his last hope for getting Lily into their treatment program, that housekeeping had fallen by the wayside. "Daddy? Who's here?" Lily appeared in the hallway, her small frame swimming in a too large unicorn pajama set, her once thick brown hair now thin from treatments. Despite everything, her smile still lit up the room. What happened next left James speechless. Victoria Reynolds, the woman whose ruthless business tactics had earned her the nickname, the Ice Queen, knelt down to Lily's level. "Hello there. I'm Victoria. I work at the company that makes medicine." Her voice had transformed completely, warm and gentle where moments before it had been controlled and professional. "Are you the lady who can help make me better?" Lily asked with the directness only children possess. Victoria's composed expression faltered for just a moment. "I'm certainly going to try," she said, and James could have sworn he saw her eyes glisten. "Would it be okay if I talked to your dad for a little while?" After Lily reluctantly returned to her room, Victoria turned to James with an intensity that made him nervous. "Your daughter is the reason you've been trying to meet with my company for the past 4 months." "Yes," James admitted. "Lily has Harrington syndrome. Your company's experimental treatment is showing the most promise, but we've been denied entry into the trial 3 times. Tomorrow's appeal was our last chance." Victoria's gaze traveled around the modest home, taking in the family photos, the medical bills stacked on the counter, the calendar on the wall marked with hospital appointments. "You're raising her alone. Her mother died when Lily was 4. Car accident." The words still felt raw, even after 4 years. "Look, about that text." "The text is why I'm here," Victoria interrupted, her voice suddenly businesslike again. "Mr. Parker, I received your message during a board meeting. I excused myself to read your file, and what I found disturbed me greatly." She pulled out her tablet and showed him his application history. "Your case should have been prioritized months ago. Someone buried it deliberately." James felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "What? Why would anyone do that?" Victoria's expression hardened. "That's exactly what I intend to find out. But first, I want to hear about Lily, not from a clinical file, but from her father." James ran his hand through his dark brown hair, the stress of the past years visible in the premature gray at his temples. At 36, he looked older, the weight of being both mother and father to a seriously ill child etched into the lines around his warm hazel eyes. His faded jeans and simple blue button-down shirt were a stark contrast to Victoria's polished appearance. "I don't even know where to begin," he said, gesturing for her to sit at the small kitchen table. "Coffee?" Victoria nodded, setting her designer handbag on the chair beside her. Up close, James noticed details about her that never appeared in business magazines: a small scar near her right eyebrow, the slight asymmetry of her smile, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was thinking. At 42, Victoria Reynolds had built an empire, but sitting in his cluttered kitchen, she seemed more approachable than her reputation suggested. "Lily was always healthy until she turned 6, James began, placing a mug of coffee in front of Victoria. "She came home from school with a fever one day. We thought it was just a cold, but it never went away. Then came the joint pain, the rashes, the constant infections." His voice caught. "3 doctors and 6 months later, we finally got the diagnosis. Harrington syndrome." Victoria listened intently as James described the rare autoimmune disorder that caused Lily's immune system to attack her own tissues. He explained the failed treatments, the hospitalizations, the way Lily's once boundless energy had diminished as the disease progressed. "She used to dance," he said softly, showing Victoria a photo on his phone of a younger, healthier Lily in a ballet costume. "Now she gets winded walking to the mailbox. The standard immunosuppressants help with the symptoms but cause other problems. Your company's targeted therapy is the first real hope we've had." Victoria's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly as she studied the photo. "And you've been denied entry to the trial 3 times? "Yes. First they said her case wasn't severe enough. Then they said it was too severe. The last rejection just said, 'Not eligible,' with no explanation." James's frustration was evident. "Tomorrow's appeal was our last shot. I was going to bring all her medical records, letters from her doctors, anything to convince them." Victoria's blue eyes flashed with something that looked like anger. "You shouldn't have had to fight this hard." She pulled out her phone and sent a rapid-fire text, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency. "I'm having my assistant pull every communication about Lily's case. I want to know exactly who made these decisions and why." That evening, sitting at his kitchen table with one of the most powerful women in the pharmaceutical industry, James shared Lily's journey, the devastating diagnosis at age 6, the failed treatments, the mounting medical bills that had forced him to sell their family home and move to this smaller house. As a high school science teacher, his salary and insurance covered the basics, but the experimental treatments were financially out of reach without the clinical trial. "She's so brave," James said, his voice breaking as he showed Victoria photos of Lily before her illness, a vibrant little girl with wild curly hair and a mischievous smile. "She never complains, even on her worst days." Victoria listened intently, occasionally making notes on her tablet. When Lily called out for a glass of water, James excused himself. Upon returning, he found Victoria standing by the bookshelf, studying a photo of him and Lily at the beach last summer. "She has your eyes," Victoria observed softly. Then, more businesslike, "Mr. Parker, I'm adding Lily to the treatment program effective immediately. I'll have the paperwork delivered tomorrow." James nearly dropped the water glass. "Just like that? But we've been trying for months." Victoria's expression darkened. "Yes, and I'll be addressing that internal failure tomorrow. Someone deliberately obstructed your application, and I intend to find out who and why."